Happy holidays and Merry Shrekmas! Every second I inch closer to being freed from my prison of flesh. It's time for my top 10 things you should watch before next year. Better start off the list on a good note for you watch time goblins out there, and be careful of spoilers! Deadpool and Wolverine is a good movie. And considering the track record of the X-Men films, that's a pretty significant accomplishment. I watched all of them before seeing this movie in theaters, and I think the first Deadpool is a fun, raunchy comedy with a heart. And while the second has good elements, it repeats a lot of the same beats and jokes, and it's nowhere near as entertaining. Fortunately, Deadpool and Wolverine is far more in line with the first film in terms of quality. I don't really have much to say about why I think the film is good, because if you've seen it, you probably already know. Hugh Jackman's amazing performance as Wolverine, Cassandra Nova is a fun and intimidating villain, Gambit is the funniest character in the movie,
My name is Jeff.
and the film acting as a nice swan song for the Fox era of Marvel films that isn't mean-spirited and really highlights the passion these actors have for these roles. I'd probably have it higher on my list, but I don't really like how a lot of the good elements from the previous films were sidelined in favor of MCU content and Fox fan service. But for what the film is, I think it's good.
Don't you see what this all is?
A Roadrunner cartoon? What are you talking about?
Out of the Mad Max films I've actually seen, I honestly can't decide if I like Fury Road or Furiosa more. While Fury Road is a fantastic movie with some of the most impressive filmography, practical effects, and production value I've ever seen in a feature film, I really enjoyed the depth that Furiosa brings to its predecessor's world. I think Furiosa's growth in this film was well done, and I really like the expanded view of the Green Place and the Citadel. The fight scenes in this movie are on par with those in Fury Road, and I'm so happy that they added aerial combat stuff that felt like it was missing when it was featured in the previous films. Dementus and his biker horde fit perfectly into the aesthetics from Fury Road, and Dementus himself is a really refreshing addition to the series' roster of villains. I love the idea of him being an anarchist, but having absolutely no idea how to lead the groups he keeps overthrowing. He's a legitimate threat that you want to see taken down, and I'd say this was Chris Hemsworth's best performance this year if I hadn't seen Transformers 1. I think Furiosa's quest for revenge against Dementus was done very well, and you really want to see her take him down, with the way that she ultimately deals with him being so torturous that it's incredibly satisfying. And I honestly think that this film perfectly transitions into Fury Road in a way that you can immediately start watching that film after you're done with this one. So if you enjoyed Fury Road, I'd highly recommend checking this out because I think it perfectly complements it.
Yo, I'm King Dragon. I'm the king of the lair.
Apparently, 2024 is the year I got back into watching new anime series, and I've really enjoyed the ones that I've seen. Free Run Beyond Journey's End is a really good fantasy show with compelling characters, and Dan to Dan has a really fun and unique premise. But if I had to choose a favorite, it would have to be Delicious in Dungeon. Delicious in Dungeon has a lot of the qualities that I've really come to like in media based on role-playing fantasy games. A rich, vibrant world, cool creature and character designs, and a main cast that feel like little freaks that don't fit in the world. The premise of adventurers living off of a dungeon as they go on a quest is fun and unique, but it wouldn't be as good if the characters didn't play off of each other really well. Not only do classic fantasy archetypes influence the events of the story, but the characters' personalities clash in ways that result in very fun slice-of-life stories. And this slice-of-life aspect is key in getting the audience invested in the cast, so when the story takes a dark turn midway through the first season, it hits like a freight train. Fallon's death, return, and transformation would not be as intense if you weren't really invested in the struggles of Laios' party. I enjoyed the first season so much that I've already started collecting the manga, so if you're into fantasy content, I'd highly recommend it. Just as a heads up, based on feedback I've gotten from people I've convinced to watch it, the dub is a big factor in their enjoyment, so I'd recommend that over the sub.
I can make bread with it! Bread! 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 Bread!
I'm pregnant, Victor, and it's yours.
Arcane is like Andor in the way that it's a really good show that I really should have talked about on my channel by now. The first season is very solid, having a great cast of characters with amazing fights and a good use of licensed music, and I think the second season follows up on it really well. I really love the continued growth of the cast, and I think the characters like Kate, Vi, and Mel have gone from being good characters to really well done female leads. Characters I didn't think much of in season 1 like Jinx, Echo, and and Savika became much more interesting in this one, and I'm really glad the show decided to give them more depth. This season also managed to become even more visually distinctive than the first one was, with everything from the fight scenes to the music selection to the landscapes being greatly improved when it was already great. The only thing that really brings the season down for me is that as it progresses, you can really feel the writers trying to speedrun 2 seasons of content in one. While I think the character journeys were done well, and I'm personally satisfied with where they ended, I think the story aspects like the conflict between Piltover and Zahn, and Bessa's political takeover of Piltover's government for her own purposes, and the conflict between Victor and Jace over Hextech's apocalyptic potential feel like they were moved through very fast, and don't necessarily hit with the impact they needed. While this does hurt the show, I think it helps with some aspects. For example, I think Vander's return and ultimate demise hit a lot harder because of how brief it was. Even with its flaws, I still really enjoyed it, and I recommend it if you enjoyed the first season.
You're my baby! You're my baby, and I love you so much!
The Wild Robot is a great movie. Not only does it have a very unique premise, it also has a really good story about identity and purpose and being more than what you were created to be. It feels like a spiritual successor to The Iron Giant in all of the right ways, and I really love that the film works so well with no human protagonists. Roz is a really great character, and I love her emotional growth in this film, and her interactions with the animals on the island are really fun to watch. Her parental relationship with Brightbell is really heartwarming and handled extremely well, and I really love how it grows and is shaped by compelling drama. It's really cool to see at least one of the 2 robot-led films I saw this year be correctly recognized by critics and audiences for the quality of its narrative and emotional beats. Check it out if you can, and please help it beat whatever Disney slop it's put up against in award season.
What a wonderful day!
For some reason, I had never seen the new Planet of the Apes films before this one came out. And now having seen them all, I cannot for the life of me understand why I'd never checked them out. Caesar's journey over the course of these movies is far more interesting and emotionally compelling than I ever could have anticipated, and it's so wild to me that this kind of storytelling was so positively received. It almost feels like something from a foreign film, not from an American series. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes builds on the previous films in really cool ways, as apes now dominate the planet and humans have been fully relegated to the side character role, where they belong. I really love how ape societies have formed and how their relationships with other animals are both similar but vastly different compared to humans. The Falconry clan, the followers of Caesar, and Proximus's kingdom all feel like unique and interesting cultures, where you can tell a lot about them from visuals alone. Noah's journey throughout the film is unique and done well in a way that makes it stand out compared to Caesar's. And his relationship with humans being vastly different adds a lot to the way the 2 groups interact. Proximus is a really fun villain, and probably would be the most quotable from this year if Sentinel Prime didn't exist.
Well, that's a shame.
If you enjoyed the other films in this series, I think you'd definitely enjoy it.
Don't you want to stop him?
No, I want to him!
You know Transformers 1 is a good movie because it had a marketing campaign so terrible that a single Twitter user did a better job at getting the word out. I was not invested in the Transformers franchise before now. I'd seen some Bayformers before this, but I never understood the appeal.
I'm an inventor.
But as someone who wasn't a fan before seeing this, I could tell you now, oh my god, I get it. This film is the perfect entry point into the franchise, because it gets you incredibly invested in the world and its characters. Despite what the trailers would have you believe, I think the film balances its serious elements and its comedy very well, and it adds a level of depth to its cast that has you invested in them in the darker moments. The vocal performances are amazing for the most part, but the standouts are definitely Orion Pax and D16. Chris Hemsworth really disappears into the role of a young Optimus becoming the leader we recognize him as, and Brian Tyree Henry's performance as Megatron is fantastic and probably my favorite performance by an actor of the year. Sentinel Prime is a fantastic twist villain, and one of the most hateable out of the media I consumed this year. And I'm really glad that unlike something like X-Men First Class, as a random example, the protagonist's goals to stop the villain clashed in interesting ways. Optimus wanting to have a clean slate by telling the truth about Sentinel's regime, while Megatron wanting to kill him and burn down everything he created, are treated equally well, and it doesn't feel like Megatron becomes evil out of nowhere. His descent into villainy is handled incredibly well, and is a natural progression for his character, in the same way that Optimus's growth is handled. If you haven't seen this movie, then go check it out now. That's not a request, it's an order. Go rent this movie right now.
Hello, my baby. Hello, my honey. Hello, my ragtime gal.
Out of everything I've seen this year, Alien Romulus is so close to being a perfect movie. I really love the story, I love the cast, I love the violence, and I think the stakes are really compelling. Rain and Andy's Fox sibling relationship is really compelling, and David Johnson's performance is the best in the film. I personally think that setting the story on a space station adds a lot to it, and I really love the ticking clock of the cast trying to rob and then escape it before it crashes into an asteroid field. The xenomorphs and facehuggers are both equally horrifying, and the sequences with them are incredibly well done. The Offspring hit me like a freight train. I love its design, I love how it's used, and it's horrifying to me that he's portrayed by a real actor and isn't a special effect. But this film completely stumbles with its insistence on using Ash via Rogue One Tarkin technology to bring him to life. I haven't seen the Alien prequels as of making this video. I've only watched the films that people say were good. But for the life of me, I cannot understand why a movie that hinges its plot on the Prometheus goop would want to use a dead actor in his film rather than bring in Michael Fassbender to reprise his role as David. It's not like he had anything better to do this year. I'd say if you could get past this aspect of the film, it's very good and worth the watch. But this film is lucky that I love it so much that I let it retain this high of a position on my list.
Let's go, lesbians! Excuse me, lesbians coming through!
Love Lies Bleeding was my yearly A24 film, and it was absolutely worth checking out. This film reminds me a lot of the visually striking imagery and mind-bending horror found in The Lighthouse and Mandy, so there was no way I wasn't going to enjoy it. I shit you not, Lou feels like an adaptation of the vibe I got from Bella Swan in Twilight before Edward shows up. So having Kristen Stewart play a trucker lesbian who's not fond of federal authorities is absolutely wild to me. Jackie is a really fun character, and I was absolutely not expecting her to be played by a minor character from The Mandalorian of all things. She feels laughably underused in that show now, in comparison to the acting she's capable of in this film. Lou and Jackie's romance is really well done, and you really want to see these two broken people have something nice in their lives as the film's downward spiral continues. Kristen Stewart and Katie M. O'Brien's performances in this film as bad people trying to be better was fantastic, and their slip-ups and attempts to make things right kept me invested for the entirety of the film. The film's villains were all extremely well done, and the consistent theme of manipulation and abuse really makes you want to see our heroines take them down in the most violent way possible. A lot of aspects of the film are a rough watch because it takes these themes seriously instead of only using them for shock value. And if you aren't aware of them going in, it could be something that would turn you off to the film. I recommend looking into it before checking it out, because if you could deal with the rough patches in this film, I think it's probably one of the best things I've seen this year.
Walk without rhythm, it won't attract the worm.
As good as the other films in this list were, there was no way they were going to beat Dune Sweep. I was able to see this film in IMAX, and it was absolutely worth the price of entry because of the masterful storytelling in this film. Any concerns with how I felt the book was being adapted from the first movie are now gone. Not only is this film far superior to part 1, anything I disliked about the first one has been vastly improved. The story, the score, the characters, just everything about this film is great. Paul's journey from an uncertain boy to a twisted messiah is so gripping. The changes in their relationship to him from characters like Cheney, Stilgar, Gurney, and Lady Jessica were done very well. New characters like Fade Raltha, Princess Irulan, and that guy from the Weapon of Choice video perfectly complement the returning characters. The fight scenes are fantastic, from the movie's opening, to the Harkonnen arena, to the final battle between the Emperor's forces and the Fremen. The first film already had amazing visuals and sequences, but the amount that are jam-packed into this film is astounding. This film not only feels like a science fiction epic, it is epic in every aspect. If you watch anything from this list, at the very least check this out. You owe it to yourself to see some of the best the genre has to offer. And that's it for the best of the 2024 video. You'd better watch some of these, because if you don't, I know where you live, and I'm closing in. See you all in 2025 if we manage to survive.